hope you have your glasses of milk ready because it's about to get spicy here up in the HGC. I'm Gillyweed back here with J-How. And if you just missed it, Team Freedom had a decisive 3-0 win over Simplicity. It looked really good for them.
I don't know why. I thought you were about to say something about cookies, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what team has anything to do with cookies? Clearly none.
Nope.
Because it's spicy.
It's spicy. Isn't that why you do to counter?
I guess,
spicy
yeah. I don't
food?
eat spicy though, so I'm not used to drinking
right.
milk. But I'm like, cookies, and like as you're going through it, I'm like, cookies. Don't know.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but I think you're going to be allergic to this next match. But before we get to it, we're going to check in with the NA standings now that we have the first win of NA Phase 2. Congratulations to Team Freedom for securing that, but it is a long ball game, even until something like the Western Clash, let alone the big deal, the big one, and that's the Global Championship at the end of this phase.
Yeah, 5 solid weeks before we hit that clash, which, oh, by the way, happens to be at the Blizzard Arena in North America. So for those of you that have been wondering, like, hey, wait a minute, they're all in Europe. Well, guess what? We've got one here, and tickets, I believe, are now available. I saw that on the Twitters not too long ago. I'll be there.
Yeah? Yeah.
I'm ready to.
I mean, we live here, so
it makes it easy.
Be pretty cool to go.
Yeah, no jet lag.
Well, we're about to get into the next match, which we've been hyping up because it's going to be really fun. ENDEMIC versus No Tomorrow. Before we get into that, what is your just overarching thoughts on this series?
No Tomorrow, they struggled more than any team that we saw in Part 2. But I've been sitting in on some scrims, I've been checking things out. It seems like they have a much better team together. The synergy's there. They obviously struggled losing Jason, obviously having to bring in Jin from the Open Division. They were very happy with him. They kept him on, things of that nature. And then ENDEMIC making much bigger splashes with their roster changes. So 2 teams definitely looking to be on the up and up, but only one team can go up in this series.
Yeah, for me, it's looking at No Tomorrow, how shot calling, how drafting, how much is affected, because this was an Equinox team. And when you talk about players having respect for Equinox, that's because players like Michael Udall would say, Equinox's team is going to upset someone in a phase. They might not make it to a Western Clash, they might not make it to the mid-season brawl, but they'll upset someone, and you have to have that respect for him. So how changed is this identity of this team? But there's a lot to talk about, so let's hear from the players about this spicy match.
We expect this roster is definitely stronger than what we had. I feel that with an actual support player playing support instead of me just running around, it should be a lot better. In reference to ENDEMIC's roster, I understand the changes and I understand why those players would want to go to that team. I feel like ENDEMIC could have a pendulum type situation where if B-Kid's able to have the confidence to play his role and do really well, because I know he can do it, I think they should be really good. But also, I feel like if they start arguing because they are friends, it might be a little awkward for them. It'll be a little easier for Mike to transfer support than it was for me, but in general, it should be the same situation where it takes a little while to learn the new playstyle and just following off of other people instead of trying to make plays on your own. I mean, of course, we think we're going to beat ENDEMIC, but you know, they're all really good players. They're all really good friends, so I feel like they'll definitely be very strong and have a good showing.
I mean, Kieran Dansky bring a lot of experience, just like they've been on a top team for about the last year and a half, and I think they bring a lot of experience, especially in the shot calling, game knowledge, and macro perspective, which I feel like is something our team kind of really lacked. Yeah, I mean, so my role swap to support, I think the role swap's been going really well, and it's definitely been like a learning phase, right? But I've been grinding a lot of games. And I actually feel like the transition has gone really, really well. But I mean, we'll see what happens when tournament comes around. But I am excited to show Akaface that I'm a much better support player than him, baby. So I mean, No Tomorrow's changes. I feel like Tomster is a really good offlaner. I mean, that's a role that he used to play before he swapped to support. So for them, I think it's going to be a net positive, right? I feel like that team really is going to need to have one player step up and be a drafter and leader. Because I feel like they don't necessarily have like a strong shot caller or drafter. And I know Akka, that's something he wants to try to do. We'll see if he can make it happen. You know, I'm not super confident for them, but if they figure it out, good for them. I expect a really clean series coming out by us. I mean, we all have like a lot of fire, especially that team. Personally, I have some beef with Akaface, so I really want to destroy No Tomorrow. I'd expect us to come out in 3-0 or 3-1.
Told you. Never before have I casted Michael Udall versus Akaface, and now we have them on the same role.
Different teams. That's just it's so hard to wrap your head around because they've been the pairing probably the longest. King Caffeine and K1 Pro probably the only other one where you could say they've been together. That's one that will never break up.
Right.
But this is one where the fact that it happened and the manner in which it happened has definitely brought a lot of interest to these teams and specifically this matchup. And Michael Udall, when I talked to him this week, it was no holds barred. I mean, he was just he told me how he really felt, and we heard how he really felt, and it's just. He's having a little bit of fun with it, but I think it's a challenge that he's very much aware of and willing to take on.
I mean, ENDEMIC is a team of duos. Mike and Akaface. Then they had Caf and K1 for a time. Biggie and B-Kid went there, and now Kieran Dansky, which is a risk. This is a team that has been infused with star power for 2 straight years, even longer than that, and have not been able to put up the same results that we would want from them every single time. The last time they went to an international event was Phase 1 Western Clash of last year. So it was a risk for Kieran Dansky, but I'm very excited to see how their play goes. We're going to go to the Battleground pool. But how do you expect this team to look with so many changes that had to come in? B-Kid, Cure, Michael Udall, all making role swaps to make this star-studded lineup happen.
Well, we've had the pleasure of working with Udall at the first Western Clash this year, and you know he talks a lot, right? He talks big, I should say, but he's very knowledgeable. He's very much aware of his situation. He's very self-aware, but he's very knowledgeable about this game. And when I asked him more specifically about Kieran Dansky coming in, he could not speak highly enough about what they bring from that shot calling role. We heard a little bit of it there, but he elaborated for me in terms of what he feels they bring. He said it's a very shared shot calling role, the experience that they have, it puts them in a new dynamic. So from his perspective, he sold me on the fact that this team should have a very, very positive outlook in terms of where their success lies. He spoke very openly about the fact that he expects Western Clash and potentially BlizzCon with this roster.
I feel like shot calling has been a constant hit or miss thing for ENDEMIC in their entire time as a team. And part of that has been things like pressure for Michael Udall. So if that truly is the case, that they're able to bring in someone who can help supplement that role, then maybe this is the difference of ENDEMIC being able to make it where they know that they can be, where they have the potential to be. But we're getting into Draft 1 between ENDEMIC and No Tomorrow. It's Sky Temple starting off this series too. Genji and Tracer bans.
Well, take away one of the strongest supports and force Michael Udall to play something that may be a little bit less conventional. Malfurion, pretty clean cut in terms of supports go. Everything else, maybe a little bit more situational. We'll see when they prioritize that, how they prioritize that, and whether No Tomorrow has any data that they've kind of accumulated. Michael Udall makes it very well known that he has streamed a lot of supports lately, something that he's been really focusing on. As he said, he's been grinding quite a bit of games. We'll see how effective that is. Also, we got to keep in mind, it was about this time last year, shortly into Phase 2, that B-Kid switched from a tank role over on that team that he was with, whatever roster name they were under. I think it was Lagaf by the time we got there.
I think they were still Navin.
It was that roster. And
yeah, that.
He ended up switching. So it's been a while since he's mained the tank role.
Right, there have been a lot of different changes to the tank role since then. Ooh, our first Maiev. Maiev receiving some changes in the patch that we're playing on, cooldown changes.
One important thing that people need to know about Kieran Dansky, that dynamic, is that you have unique heroes that are situational, that have high impact, that are not every game heroes, unless you have people that can play them both. Cure is an excellent Maiev player. Dansky, as you alluded to, is an excellent Medivh player. So they can play around things that maybe other teams can't get away with. There are very few teams outside of Tempo Storm, and we don't know because Psalm was kind of that guy. We don't know where they lie. But ENDEMIC has that dynamic that I don't think any other team has right now in North America. And I think that is definitely a strength they can play off of as they show the early Maiev pick.
There is also a question mark about that Maiev because Cure was the Maiev player for Octalis' back. And now being on that Blaze, back to the offlane role. We'll see if that's going to be Dansky or Big E playing the Maiev, and that should give us a really good idea of how the backline is going to work with these titans matching up on the same team. No Tomorrow now gets ETC and Sonya too. So the possibilities for Mosh Pit, also for Stage Dive, which we've seen to great success on these larger battlegrounds.
No. The Abathur, when you see MIF, doesn't really come to mind. It's still a possibility, although when you have a Sonya double melee, it's not normally the thing. Depending on the range that you can get, it's always something that you have to keep in mind when you're on Sky Temple. Is the Abathur thing? I think right now, signs pointing towards no, so we'll see ENDEMIC, their second ban, got to focus on the backline that will potentially be coming out from No Tomorrow. What can counter the Blaze? What can counter the Maiev? Who maybe takes away some of the mobility that allows Maiev to get onto that backline or potentially save as we see the false dead ban?
Yeah, already with one global possible too with the ETC, ENDEMIC are trying to make sure that when they show up for a fight, that No Tomorrow have to fight them, and not allowing Gust, not allowing for things like just the split push and then disengage is going to be nice for them, especially since the Sonya is already shown. Tahaka isn't a concern now, so it's a lot more about that false dead. I wanted to ask you, you've been a Tomster fan as long as I've known you. How pumped are you to see him back on his old role?
Yeah, I've been watching. I've been, you know, sitting in scrims watching and trying to see things. I feel that one of the things that was both good and bad for Tomster was when he was alongside the other rosters, when it was Naventic and those teams, they were hyper aggressive. And it kind of changes your mindset and mentality on the game to where that becomes the norm. And he was on those teams for so long that became the norm. Even when he was on support for this roster earlier, Equinox had very much the same mindset, and he would aggressively make plays on supports that sometimes were unwarranted. And I think now he's still on a roll to where he has an opportunity, and I think there's times where he still has to learn to dial it back a little bit. I think that's going to take a little bit of time for him to kind of learn and temper that aggression.
Well, when I think of B-Kid, I think of Muradin. Muradin is still up. So is Garrosh if they want the double displace. And that would be a ton of control. But B-Kid is an old Muradin main.
There's a lot of tanks that were probably old Muradin mans. Rip Unstoppable E.
And stuns on Avatar.
Yeah. So Hanzo picked up, Johanna's going to be there. I think Johanna's the safe pickup because if you don't go stage dive and you have Mosh Pit, yes, the Dragon's Arrow does have a stun. Generally, you want that to be more of a playmaker and less of a defensive option. Johanna does have Iron Skin and can pop that Condemn. If you see ETC going in, the stun doesn't cancel Condemn, and that's generally the best way to do that. So Johanna gives that frontline control. You don't have to be the ultimate playmaker because you have a Blaze and a Maiev. And allowing Hanzo to play off that, I think, is very good for ENDEMIC to start this draft.
Were you surprised by the Tyrael ban? Because for me, I see having Blaze Maiev, and I would think that Stukov would be the ban. We saw it a lot at Midseason Brawl, and the lurking arm with Warden's Cage is terrifying, but instead we see Tyrael here.
Yeah, you know, the Tyrael was one of those things earlier in the year. I think it might have even been probably the last we really saw it was at Western Clash. When you have a bunker and a sanctification,
sure,
it's pretty strong. But the Stukov, as you said, one of them is more defensive, one of them is more offensive.
Right.
And it's like, what are you willing to deal with? And it seems like they might be willing to deal with seeing if Michael Udall can make those plays.
Thrall but a Li Ming. Often see the Thrall Phoenix match because Earthquake is probably the best as far as setting up for a purification salvo. But Earthquake is also really good for trying to keep people in a spot so that you can start to get those resets.
Yeah, you know, Phoenix does have that capability in case he does get it in the Warden's Cage, can warp out, doesn't have the same type of mechanics of passing through, it just warps over the wall. Li Ming can avoid the tethers potentially by blinking away before that ever becomes a thing. Thrall is one of those heroes that, Thrall and Sonya, you're in melee and you get tethered in there, you're probably like, okay, let's go. So for a Thrall and a Sonya, they very much welcome that forward aggression that comes out from a Maiev. So two heroes that can stand in the pocket and basically throw punches back is definitely going to work for them. But the biggest question somehow comes to the last pick, Gilly. Michael Udall, what you playing?
Is it Stukov? It's Deckard Cain. Okay. Deckard with Maiev, who we did see that it's going to be Biggie playing. Deckard with Maiev is interesting, but it's better to be with the Maiev than against it. Because she says where the fights are going to be. But with the Thrall too, and ETC with a ton of control, I don't know that Biggie will always get the first choice in that, but what I really love about this first draft is that with the Blaze Maiev, ENDEMIC said, we want to be aggressive, and No Tomorrow was like, we do.
Okay.
Let's do it. Like, this is cool.
Yeah, I like the draft. I mean, Thrall was kind of that NA special that ended up making its way to mid-season. We brought a little bit of our own meta there, and people are like, wait a minute, Thrall actually does function very well into that third melee. Now that we've seen the draft play out, the question does come up because Cure, when he was with Octalysis, was the Maiev player, obviously switching over to that melee role. I was kind of curious how they would build around that. We've still got to find out, but it seems like maybe it's Dansky. Maybe Biggie has generally been a carry role. Dansky's been a bit more flexible in his time. So we'll find out here soon. That's, to me, having this flexibility on this team of ENDEMIC is something I think a lot of other teams are going to be missing.
I cheated. I looked. It's
I
Biggie.
can see you looking over there.
Yeah. Which would be my guess. Biggie has been a excellent Tracer player and Genji player too, so I think that tends to fit in with him really well and then allows Dansky to be that person in the back who just continually drops people down. And here he is, Dansky, as we introduce ENDEMIC. He'll be playing the Hanzo. Kier is on Blaze. Big impact. We'll be dropping the cages with that Warden Maiev. Michael Udall flexing over to the support. In his first game is Deckard Cain. And finally, BKid back on the tank playing Johanna.
For No Tomorrow, they're going to be over here on the right side in red. Casanova, one of my most standout players from Phase 1. He'll be on the Thrall. Tomster, of course, switching over to his melee role. He's going to be on the Sonya. Jay Shrite, of course, still trying to carry his weight there on the Li Ming. Jen on the ETC and Akaface. As we mentioned, Gilly, the new face here, trying to lead the team. He's going to be on support, again, on the Malfurion.
I think it's really amazing that No Tomorrow held their position with Jin because he came in to replace Jason and he was off of an open division team, but now he's held his spot. And for those of you who didn't watch that Crucible match, it was grueling for No Tomorrow. They were down 3-1 at one point and won 3 games in a row to hold this spot. So now Jen knows that he's got that deserving spot, and that has to be a load off of his mind to let him get in here and power slide after the Vault of the Wardens.
Yeah, you know, you speak of Jin. I talked to multiple people from multiple teams, and I was asking, you know, what are your thoughts on Jin? Did he deserve his spot? Obviously, not making that change. I did not hear a single negative comment. I mean, obviously, there are some things of, oh, he could learn on this, but everybody threw praise at Jin and his ability to come in. You know, getting used to the pacing, I think, was generally the #1 thing because the pacing of like pro play very different than open, and there was nothing but praise for him. So definitely deserved a spot. No Tomorrow, they're gonna roll the dice with him.
No Tomorrow has a laning setup. I was wondering when they were gonna put Thrall in lane because he needs to be stacking up Echo of the Elements. No Crash Lightning this game. He's gonna have the Giants with him too, so they're gonna want to protect him so that he doesn't come under fire as he tries to clear these out and get some sieging done. So the rest is still here as they pushed out the mid wave, and now ENDEMIC getting their Giants. We'll see if they can push this back.
Well, just like we saw in our earlier series, where does the priority in that top lane come in because of the changes to the XP? How much value do you put in that? And then how much do you emphasize that top temple, which is generally where you double up on that? We can see on the minimap, ENDEMIC does have a couple of members up there, but they're holding on that cap, waiting to see how much value they get out of the bottom lane before they rotate up and potentially push in here in the early game.
They hold the cap, and love seeing that. No Tomorrow hasn't even started yet, and what we saw in the last series was the team who started later. It was Team Freedom. They were able to defend underneath their towers and then have that pushing during the temple phase. We're just short of the notification with 30 seconds out of the temple phase, and No Tomorrow starting to work on their bruisers. They're transitioning up so that they can get the same kind of defense, and we'll see how that works out for them.
They definitely need it. I think they wish they would have cleared this maybe about 5 seconds sooner. Yeah, they're a little bit slow on the rotation, but you can credit ENDEMIC for causing that chaos, and now they're losing not just 1 tower, but potentially 2 by the time this is all said and done. Casanova trying to turn that fight. There's going to be the tether in, but the power slide in by Jin, not able to get the follow-up just yet. But so far, ENDEMIC winning on this trade. Biggie actually getting quite a bit of value there on the Maiev, but it's temple time.
And remember, No Tomorrow chose to draft this very heavy melee composition into the Maiev. We saw one example of what the Emerald Bind into a Scroll of Sealing could do. may even get worse later on if we see what has been consistent with what we saw in the last series, which is Emerald, the heal reduction too. But both of those heroes, Sonya and Thrall, though melee assassins, I guess technically a warrior for Sonya, do have their own self-sustain. It's just whether or not that Emerald can get maximum amounts of damage done when ENDEMIC choose to engage.
You can see teams now, Gilly, as we've now seen this a couple times. Again, some of the XP has been taken away from the fort towers and then distributed, but hold on a second, Akaface, be surprised. Actually, he's going to hold on there. B-Kid unable to help confirm the kill. Nice Moonfire, keeping him alive a little bit longer. Akaface very cautious with his positioning because the Eye is about to be taken by Maev. We'll see if Biggie can make the play. You can see him lurking in the bush. See if he tries to get on that back line, Gilly.
Akaface is incredibly low. That would be prime target. Phantom Knives, instant engage along with the jet propulsion too, and that gives the resets for the Phantom Knives, but it's Johanna that's blown up to give first blood and the rest of these shots to No Tomorrow.
Jay Shrite waited for an opportunity. If you're a ranged mage player, the number one thing you can do is wait for any bit of CC, and that is free skill shots. So that working out well for them. You know, one thing that Maev does do against melee is you get that reset on that Phantom Knives. Is super terrifying. So if you're gonna make plays happen, that's one way to do it. No Tomorrow fighting fire with fire. The fact that they come out with first blood, a little bit surprising, but again, that top fort that was taken down, some of that experience obviously going over to that fort gives a little bit of an advantage over to ENDEMIC.
Yeah, I think it's very important that Jay Shrita not be at all involved with the big fight that's going to go down between Maev and all of the melee, the rest of the melee on the team, because as long as he's staying out and they can weather the storm with those high damage dealers and especially the self-healing that they have, then Jay Shrita should be able to find those resets they did there. That changes with Bunker though.
Yeah, you're that friend that just stands on the side like, you guys take care of the dirty work. I'm gonna be over here making the plays. There's gonna be Biggie coming in, offering the peel over to Cure. Roots are going to go down, stacking up. Doesn't do anything to cause much, but it does give another stack towards those vengeful roots for Akaface. But starting to even up this experience here is going to be that of No Tomorrow.
They are right on the edge of getting heroic abilities, as is ENDEMIC. Jen starting the rotation. Dansky seems to be the target here.
Oh, Michael Udall. I mean, this is
Deckard
Cain. Deckard Cain can live for a while if the skill shots don't land. Hold on a second, as we've got Biggie. There's a reset. He's getting the Phantom Knives of his dreams. B-Kid looks like they might be able to trade out here, but level 10 picked up. Dragon Arrow not enough to save it, but Deckard Cain seems to sometime have 9 lives. Unfortunately, only lived for so long. But Michael Udall, super aggressive in his positioning, Gilly. He's not on that old role anymore.
Yeah, that's what we've been trending toward this whole series, is people being out maybe further than they should be on their new roles. But that's bound to happen. It's called growing pains for a reason. Heroics here, and we've got a stage dive from No Tomorrow's ETC. No mosh pit through the earthquake.
Just way too many interrupts when you consider the Johanna already.
Oh,
nice
excellent.
face smell.
Oh, man. Ginseng, what's up to Kira? Kira even used Pyromania there.
Yeah, it doesn't get much cleaner than that. The fact that he hit both sides of that, pretty impressive. A B-Kid holding point because he's on the Johanna, does have that Iron Skin if needed. Tomster, he's going to get onto the points, try and fight. The knockback there by the Anubis on point while the fight kind of split right now. See who's willing to commit on which end. As you can see, Biggie's still looking for an opportunity, does have that mobility. Tomster gets tethered, gets pulled in the entire time. The battle rages here on this temple.
Iron Skin was used out of this. There's the roots and the earthquake too, but a bunker on the other side of that. Biggie's in danger. Teleports a Dragon's Arrow into the stay well and listen, and now a cage as the re-engage comes in for ENDEMIC.
Tomster looking to stay alive, but the stun's going to be there. The blessed shield goes out. Everybody's getting pulled this way and that. The root's going to be enough, and that's going to be enough to confirm the kill there onto Jen. Temple still has a little bit to channel, but ENDEMIC, this is what I love about the shot calling from ENDEMIC, Gilly. It's one thing that we see from Michael Udall on his stream and things like that. It's very snap calls, and the fact that they have everybody on the same page, instantly rotating over, this is what you want to see from a team that is looking to have championship aspirations. But that is not what you want to see.
No, that jet propulsion missed, and now this allows No Tomorrow to get into the backline stage dive, come back in. That was ETC who was killed. He has a globally stage dove back in. The boss is stolen by No Tomorrow, and ENDEMIC are on the retreat.
It always feels good when you're a commentator and you're heaping praise on a team and then something like that happens. You're
It's
like,
called Caster's Curse.
well, it's a curse that keeps on giving because the temple's still available. This temple now nets even more value because the boss taking down the fort, temple shots will hit that mid fort, and things for No Tomorrow looking pretty good.
Yeah, double fort play from that. And an early boss, too. But ENDEMIC biting off slightly more than they can chew. The call, you said it, was super fast and good. You want those kinds of calls. The problem was that ETC still had stage dive, and when he popped back up, the respawn timer is just slightly too much to deal with. Even with a Hanzo for the boss, you would think that that would be safe, but No Tomorrow steals that back, and it's great to see that No Tomorrow is being able to contest and have the same kind of aggressive shot calling even without Equinox.
With No Tomorrow, they do have the talent tier advantage. They're going to push forward here as we see another route followed up by another route. Vengeful routes starting to stack up. 8 stacks for Akaface. Been very timely, following up on quite a bit. Another tower goes down. No Tomorrow stretching their lead a little bit.
Yes, No Tomorrow brought all 5 up there, even ETC, maybe looking for a fight without the 12, but didn't dive underneath the fort. And that did give ENDEMIC a little bit of catch-up because they were willing to use Johanna, use Blaze just to try to soak and stay within the league where they can team fight with No Tomorrow. We're going to have a next temple phase. It'll be in the bot and the mid. And for No Tomorrow having that global, that has to be a constant consideration for ENDEMIC.
And that's an opportunity for No Tomorrow. Right now, they have a bit of a lead because of that boss and the structures that went down. So if they trade, I wouldn't be surprised. With No Tomorrow, I feel their nature is to not let it trade. They're still going to come out ahead, and that's the #1 thing. But when you have the global, sometimes you try and play around that. Get a little bit of one temple, force the rotation out, and then get the entire temple on the other side. So you generally have a net value that's positive instead of a trade. And I think we're going to find that as we do see ETC. The big part about ETC, I was going to say for him not to show too much. But now ENDEMIC knows exactly where ETC is. He could have stayed in that bush and maybe soaked a little bit more instead of showing. Now ENDEMIC's decision on where they can fight, including taking vision here, which gives you control of that middle temple, is a lot easier.
We'll see if the stage dive has to happen now, because with that Dragon's Arrow, and the Blessed Shield too, Tomster's in danger. Stay a while, Warden's Cage, everything, and Jin finds a problem again like we saw before, the constant control over his positioning. He makes it out this time, but Jin stage diving in, it feels like, is terrifying every time.
You have, if you're on that ETC, it's nice to land the stage dive and hit people in zone, but with a stay a while and listen on the other side, I feel like you're going to have to stage dive a little bit further back, look for that Deckard priority target. Not only does it give you a different target to prioritize and keep you out of the stay a while and listen, but it also allows you to power slide to your side of safety as opposed to try and slide into the enemy team. So I feel Jin has to learn from that, and that's going to be a difficult thing to adapt to on the fly, especially with that missed opportunity right there.
The only thing is, if he power slides even further behind ENDEMIC, I'm scared of the cage, keeping him from getting back to his team. So it's an understandable concern not to want to full-on engage off to that other side, but with the earthquake, maybe No Tomorrow can make something happen or keep more control over Big E.
No Tomorrow, this is a dangerous position. They don't have a fort to draw back to. 16 on the horizon. Dragon Arrow is going to come in, land on multiple members. Biggie has the perfect dive in. There's going to be one tether. Tomster running for his life. Nice zoning by Jin. He's going to stage dive out to safety. But the damage is done. Not only are they losing the temple, they lose a hero, and that top wave was still getting value. ENDEMIC starting to turn up the heat.
Want to see if we can see that fight again out. I think Jet Propulsion forced the Nature's Cure, which then you didn't have it with Dragon's Arrow. Malfurion is so good versus Hanzo because he can Nature's Cure people out of that Dragon's Arrow, but the timing of that from ENDEMIC was so good, so that it was they still had the max amount of lockdown from that on those melee heroes. And with this temple, the push now, getting those keep towers, experience from those were unaffected, JL.
Yeah, still mounting as we now look at a full level lead. ETC shown in the top lane, stage dive still on cooldown. I imagine when the boss comes up, if there is another opportunity, ENDEMIC might be a little bit more cautious than they were before. We'll see if they find that opportunity as they're going to rotate up and around. Right now, they can just kind of play, slow play, see where the next temples are, because right now, there's not a lot of information they have. They have to keep an eye on the boss, of course. It's not a desperation call. It's not a desperate moment where teams have to force this. Neither team does. It's a matter of where the temple's next, can you manipulate the rotations, and then can you play around that Hanzo race potential with that scatter arrow build.
No Tomorrow's getting ahead in the early game, starting to lose momentum as they, well, I guess they just gained the lead from the boss steal, but desperate to get that momentum back. This is game 1 in a highly anticipated series from both of these teams, so neither wants to fall behind in the first game of the series.
Biggie's impact that we see at the bottom of the screen, staying out of vision, looking for opportunities where he can blink over as needed, find a target. Not going to find one there, but always a threat. So I've been really keen on watching his positioning, obviously taking over this Maev role for the team. It's been really good so far. It's just he's made the right plays. He's gotten the pick as needed. Tomster very far out there. But Blaze has shown up at the top, and ETC does have the global. Blaze does not. We'll see. No Tomorrow tries to manipulate that.
Likely not with Temples activating in 30 seconds, but if things go wrong, they lose 1, they might be able to swiftly transition down to that, given that the Temples are top mid.
I mean, the biggest thing is that vision right now, the eye, has such a tremendous amount of value.
Yes.
Controlling that means that you can either gank or not gank. You cannot gank from top down if you do not have that vision. So for ENDEMIC, they have so much to play around. They might start on mid-temple and trying to get the element of surprise there. There's a lot that they can do. The one thing that No Tomorrow is doing that's helping is by getting that camp. If that pushes out lane, that creates vision in the middle of the lane that can help No Tomorrow. They're going to find ENDEMIC here on the middle. Might have a fight breaking out over this mid-temple.
Yeah, not only the eye, the vision, but the lanes that were pushed out too. ENDEMIC has had much better control of the lanes and, in my opinion, better setups, patience around the camps too. The engagement's going to start. We see stage up on the other side, but Iron Skin is quick to be used. It does body block now.
You can see Biggie taking quite a bit of damage, but there's going to be a 3-man Dragon Arrow to thwart any more advances, but Biggie was taking quite a bit of damage. Again, those melee heroes of a Thrall and a Sonya are very much okay with staying in the fight.
They were, but ENDEMIC had no inclination to fight there. They have a level lead, and all they did was send Blaze up to the top, get that temple. They had Hanzo in the bottom pushing that out. There's camps in both of those lanes, and yes, No Tomorrow are getting a temple, but this is where they need a fight to get back in the game. I love this decision from ENDEMIC. They got out, they baited No Tomorrow there. No Tomorrow went with everybody again, so not utilizing the full global the way that they wanted because they stage dove right at the beginning of that, and now ENDEMIC are right about to get 20 and nearly have that keep in the top.
Well, that was the thing also, is that if there's no Hanzo, Tomster was forced to go down and sit in that bush where we see Jen at right now to keep an eye on the boss. Hanzo changes the game a bit when he goes that scatter arrow build when there is boss consideration. So for No Tomorrow, they couldn't commit any more resources anywhere else because they knew they didn't have vision. They didn't know where it was. So that changes quite a bit of No Tomorrow's approach. Now with the threat of 20 and the scatter arrow build, the lanes pushed out. They have vision, Blaze anchoring, making sure to get vision in the choke points. This is a free boss. And with 20 and that keep already exposed, this could be a potential game-ending push here for ENDEMIC if they look to get aggressive. One pick is all it takes to snowball out of control.
There's a big front line to get through. Earthquake's going to be back up in 7 seconds. That should help. And if ENDEMIC push too far up, they may expose Deckard Cain, but with a bunker, it's so difficult for No Tomorrow to get a quick kill that would staunch this. Boss moves forward. Dragon's Arrow from the back as Biggie goes in too, but the Dragon's Arrow was pretty much avoided.
This is guaranteed keep. It's a matter of if ENDEMIC can get another kill. ETC trying to get 20, but that's going to be unsuccessful. He's going to have to stage dive in here. ENDEMIC already moving off to the side. Warden's Cage going to zone them out, as is the bunker. Stay on, listen, hitting all 5 members at one given point. Shields have fallen, Gilly.
That is, they had Respect the Elderly too, which has the blind and silence after the fact, and ENDEMIC just get onto the core, no problem at all with that 20. Having the boss to stay a while and listen hit a lot of people, which slowed down the defense of this, and knowing that ETC was staying desperate, hoping to get 20 there, was just enough for ENDEMIC to seal the deal. Steal the game.
Steal the deal, seal the deal, seal of scrolling. Everything worked out there. It seems every time stage dive comes in, you get to see the triangle starting to form. It's like, welcome to the party. You know, for Endemic, was it the cleanest victory? Probably not, but I would credit No Tomorrow's draft there. That Thrall Sonya pickup, I think, definitely made the Maiev pickup a bit more, or a little less impactful in that situation. So I feel No Tomorrow played well into that. We saw a couple of team fights, but Endemic, for the most part, felt like they had control, and then that boss fight was probably the one questionable call for Endemic. It seemed like the right call. I like the call, the snap judgment. It just missed the mark a little bit.
What I do want to say, though, is that when you look at the draft, the support for Endemic was left all the way until the end of the draft, last pick, so that they have the comfort to be okay with Michael Udall switching his support for the first time in his competitive career and say, we want to have a support that stops whatever you're going to do. We don't know quite yet what you're going to do drafting, so we want to be able to counter you. And then versus that melee, the hugely melee team of No Tomorrow, that Deckard Cain got a lot done. There was the one time where he also was melee, but other than that, it was
a little
very
too
well
far
done.
forward. Yeah, I mean, Michael Udall, I think, showed that. I don't want to say Deckard is an easy hero to play, don't get me wrong. But I think it's a safer hero compared to some of the other ones. It's less risk involved with far more impact in that situation. It also seems like Deckard is a very good answer towards ETC, because no matter what, if you're trying to control the front line, you power slide in, you've probably got CC to deal with. And that's just coming from Deckard. You want a stage dive? Probably not happening because you're going to sleep. You want a mosh pit? Probably not happening because you're going to sleep. And I think that's one of the biggest counters that we've seen so far in the early goings towards ETC. So definitely, I think, was a statement that they waited till the last pick and said, well, we don't need it.